And welcome to the East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting of Tuesday the 10th of September 2024. The East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public by following the link on Council's website. During the meeting, any members of the public who are addressing the Council will have their image and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless approval has been granted by the Chair. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend meetings electronically or in person, and the meeting will be open to the public via live streaming. If technical difficulties are experienced with the live streaming during the meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If the technical issues cannot be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later time or date. The East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai, Monero and Bidwell people as the traditional owners of the lands that encompass East Gippsland and their enduring relationship with country. The traditional owners have cared for and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council value their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders, past, present and future. A member's attendance can only be recorded as present at a council meeting when the member can confirm that they meet all of the following criteria. Firstly, that they can hear proceedings and can be heard by other members in attendance. And secondly, that they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members. I'll now confirm with our councillor online that they can see, hear and be heard by each other, and also to note assurance from each that the location they are participating from is secure to ensure confidential deliberations remain confidential. Councillor Buckley, good evening. Can you see and hear us?
Good evening, Mayor. Yes, I can.
And can you ensure that the location you're participating from this evening is confidential?
Indeed it is.
Excellent. Thank you. If a councillor participating electronically experiences technical difficulties during the meeting, we may adjourn briefly to enable the councillor to rejoin the meeting. Should the councillor be unable to reconnect within 5 minutes, the meeting shall resume in the councillor's absence. Agenda item 1.2 is apologies, and I believe there are none tonight. Is that correct, CEO?
Yes, ma'am, no apologies.
Thank you. Item 1.3 is declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors and officers, do we have any conflicts to declare this evening? Councillor Van Diggle.
I have a general conflict of interest at item 5.1.2, the fire slashing services.
Thank you. And Ms Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I also have a conflict with that particular item as well.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 1.4 is confirmation of the previous minutes. Councillors, I trust you've read the minutes. Do I have a motion to confirm they are an accurate record of that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Secondly, Councillor Allen. Would you like to speak to the motion? No? No. Is the motion opposed? Anybody else like to speak to the motion? No. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. CEO. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 1.4 is the next meeting of council. Currently, the next meeting of council published to the public is to occur on the 15th of October.
Excuse me, Mayor. Sorry, just a point. I moved the open council minutes. There were closed council minutes as well. I'm wondering if they need to be moved separately.
That is a good question. I'll seek some governance advice on that.
It's taken 4 years for me to realise that question. Sorry about that, officers.
I do believe that previously the motion has covered both sets of minutes, so
Correct.
I would...
That's right.
That is the case?
That is the
Thanks
case.
Thanks for the clarification and the question. Councillors, our next meeting is actually an unscheduled meeting to occur on the 24th of September here at the Corporate Centre, 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, commencing at 3:30 p.m. Our previously scheduled meeting, which will now occur after that, is on the 15th of October at the same location, commencing at 6 o'clock. Agenda item 1.6 is requests for leave of absence. Ms Weigel, have we received any requests?
Thank you, Mayor. I've received no requests at this stage.
Thank you. Agenda item 1.7 is open forum. Are there any petitions this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. We have no petitions.
Questions of council?
Thank you, Mayor. Quite unusually, we have no questions of council this evening.
Must have answered all the questions. 1.7.3 is public submissions. Do we have any public submissions, CEO?
We have no public submissions, Mayor.
Thank you. And item 1.8 is items for tabling. And I believe there are no items for tabling.
No items for tabling, Mayor.
Agenda item number 2 is notices of motion. And we do have a notice of motion this evening. I wonder if we can have that displayed on the screen. And I will just note that is my notice of motion, and I have made a minor amendment following some requests from my fellow councillors there, and that amendment appears in yellow. I don't believe it is a material change. So I would like to move that motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Van Diggle, thank you very much. I will now speak to the motion. Councillors, having safe, stable and appropriate housing is the foundation for a functional life. It underpins good physical and mental health, employment, education and family. But we know that more adults and children are rough sleeping, couch surfing, in crisis accommodation or in precarious housing arrangements than ever before. And I have, for the first time recently, seen people sleeping on the street here in Bairnsdale and heard many reports of others sleeping rough in the sand dunes in Lakes Entrance and in cars across the region. Some Redbridge polling out just today, commissioned on behalf of Everybody's Home, a coalition of housing, homelessness and welfare organisations, found that 2 out of 3 people say that the cost of housing is causing them stress, that 4 in 5 are worried about housing affordability for young Australians, and that most voters agree Australia needs more drastic solutions to housing affordability than those being considered by governments. High house prices are increasing the gap between rich and poor, and expensive housing is making it hard for people to live near good jobs. Local government has an important role in creating and maintaining the right enabling environment for our collective efforts to end homelessness. This is because council holds responsibility for the regulation of space and the built environment, for driving community and local economic development, and for supporting resident and business wellbeing in ways that communities need and desire. To build even stronger communities, we need to tackle homelessness from multiple angles and be armed with the information on what options are available and how we can use council's resources in the best way possible to play our role in addressing this growing problem. Tiny homes alone clearly won't solve this complex challenge, but they have played a role in other areas, and it's that opportunity that this motion seeks to explore. If passed, this motion will allow council to make more informed decisions in relation to tiny homes, about what actions we could give priority to, and to better understand the role tiny homes may play in the complex set of solutions required to end this persistent and wicked problem. It will assist and support our capacity to advocate too, for policy-based solutions to other decision makers on behalf of our community. There is a clear need for more diverse housing options, and tiny homes, especially tiny homes on wheels, can seemingly provide an alternative form of housing for those struggling to put a roof over their heads. We've seen some other councils, such as Mount Alexander Shire and the Yarra Ranges Council, make changes to their planning laws to facilitate the uptake of tiny homes, but it remains unclear if such changes would work here, or if so, how these measures could increase housing options for people who need them. A report from officers on the benefits and challenges of tiny home regulation, drawing on examples from other councils from around Australia, is a much needed first step to inform our council's future actions to take meaningful action in this important space. The report called for in this motion seeks to inform future decisions on removing regulatory barriers and promoting tiny homes as an affordable and diverse housing option to alleviate housing stress and enhance housing security for the residents of East Gippsland. Councillors, I urge you to support this motion. Councillor Van Diggle, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I have some notes here, but you've covered it very nicely. I'm really happy that this motion has come forward. It's unfortunately at one of our last meetings, but we have spoken about it for a little while. I just wanted to add as well, in addition to, easing housing stress, I think just having some diversity in housing options, because if you look at the rentals available or the houses to buy, it's generally 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms at minimum. And I know for a fact there's a lot of people who don't want that type of housing as well. So I think beyond just supporting housing stress and affordability, I think it's just having some different options for people who might be ageing or just don't want a big house. I don't really have anything else to add. I'm glad that this is in our council term, that we're putting it forward. It's a shame it's not coming back to us. I don't think it locks us into anything. It doesn't lock the future council into anything. I think it's just understanding, what our current planning system allows for and if we need to make any changes moving forward. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Reeves, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I just wanted to thank you for bringing this notice of motion to the council, and I think that there's probably a good deal of merit in exploring the opportunities provided by tiny homes. Now, you mentioned housing stress, and this is a really complex area, and I think you alluded to that quite well. And I just wanted to tease a couple of those ideas out. Housing stress may be related to job security, cost of living pressures, repayment hardships, changes in personal circumstances, slow allocation of land release by local government, increases in building costs, or state government for that matter, increases in building costs, planning legislation lagging behind social expectations, seasonal surge in worker demand creating duress on existing housing stock. For example, the summer beachside hospitality worker demand soaking up or being removed from the market by holidaymakers. And look, tiny homes may not be, or they may be, the answer to these complex social or social economic dynamics. So I am happy to support this notice of motion, and but I think you've noted that the bigger and more complex matters will still persist. And we've got an opportunity in council within our remit to explore this. So I hope it doesn't involve an excess of officers' time, because it is a really complex area if they're going into the whole area of understanding housing stress. But I think that the notice of motion actually contains it quite well. And I look forward to seeing a report at some stage in the future, and hope that the next council can act on that report. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Uri, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly to speak in support of the motion as well, and to thank yourself and Councillor Van Diggle for bringing it forward for consideration. I think most of the points have been covered. I think we all recognise that homelessness is a distressing issue, not just to see people who are sleeping rough on the streets, but for the people who actually haven't got a home to go to, and the health and safety implications of that are quite awful to think about. So although, as you say, this won't solve all the problems, I think if it solves some of the problem or begins to open up the conversation about other ways that council can help to address the problem, I think it's really beneficial. Obviously, council has to continue to be responsible. It's under a lot of obligations in the way we spend our money, both ratepayers' money and grant funding. We always have to be responsible about that. But I think this notice of motion outlines a way forward to potentially open up the options for some tiny houses, which might help the problem. Happy to support it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillors, would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Greason, please go ahead.
I really don't have much to add to what the other councillors have said. I think it's a terrific motion and very timely. I think everyone knows that council's starting to look into this issue very seriously, and having the data that this will generate will help a great deal. And I think the focus on tiny homes is a response to quite strong community interest. So thank you for putting it up, you too.
Thanks, Councillor Greason. Councillors, would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? No, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to agenda item number 3, which is deferred business. CEO, is there any deferred business for tonight's meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. No deferred business this evening.
Very good. Seem to have lost agenda item number 4 somewhere. Thank you. There it is down the bottom. Council and delegate reports, agenda item number 4. Councillors, I encourage you to submit your delegate reports to be included in the minutes as we've previously agreed. Agenda item number 5 is officer reports. The first officer report tonight is with Mr McConnell, and it's 5.1.1, contract 2025-1701R, Swifts Creek Recreation Reserve upgrade. Thank you, Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report in relation to the tender and award a contract for the upgrade of the Swifts Creek Recreation Reserve, and in this case particularly the building facilities at the Swifts Creek Recreation Reserve. So this is a really important facility for the Swifts Creek community. It is, like sporting facilities in many small country towns, it's really central to the social life and fitness and well-being and so on of these communities. It was one of the projects that was identified quite early in the process as a priority for bushfire recovery, and funding was secured a number of years ago in relation to that to redevelop the reserve. I should note that this is a reserve that is a Crown Land Reserve managed by DECA and a Committee of Management directly, so Council in this case is stepping in to help the community deliver this project in this case. So the project had 2 components. The first was upgrade of the existing netball courts, etc. That work has been completed, which we're really pleased about. And the second component, which is the subject of this report this evening, is the upgrade or replacement of one of the existing buildings, particularly the existing change room facilities, which, if you recall from a councillor visit there, are in dire need of replacement. So it will replace those change rooms, the amenities associated with those. There'll be facilities there for umpires and so on. So it's a really important component of the overall recreation reserve. I do note the community have been quite patient as we've worked through this particular project. Like many of our projects, it has faced the challenges associated with budget cost escalation through the COVID period, etc. And so there has been some scope adjustments, and as a result, the community are going to continue to use the existing social rooms as their social rooms. So this really is focused on those amenities for players and so on. So yeah, I certainly recognise all of the work that the Rec Reserve Committee of Management have put in with council officers in bringing this project to this stage. I also like to just recognise the funding contribution from Emergency Recovery Victoria, which has been instrumental in bringing this project to fruition. So, councillors, you have before you the report. It outlines the importance of this project. You've also got the confidential tender evaluation panel report, which outlines the results of the tender process for your consideration. So with that, Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions, and I do have Renee Wicks, our Manager of Infrastructure Projects, here to assist with any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr McConnell, and welcome, Renee. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Stowe, please go ahead.
Stuart, I noticed that Councillor contributing $420,000 towards the project. I also note that it's a DECA asset. Are they contributing anything, and if not, why not?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Stowe. So first thing I would note is it is a challenge, and has been a challenge across many of our facilities the facilities in East Gippsland, which are DECA community management facilities. We would like them to contribute to the upgrade and so on of those facilities, but that's not something that they typically do. What I would say in this case, though, is that the state government is contributing significant funds through the Emergency Recovery Victoria. So it's not DECA, but it is state government that's contributing the funds in this case. Well, I should say the majority of the funds, not all of the funds.
Thanks, Councillor Stowe. Councillor Buckley, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want a bit of an explanation in regards to the change or redirection of funding in regards to the Hinnamungi Bridge, which is one of our first bridges, I'm led to understand, ever built in the state. And although I'm very grateful, and so are the community, that the Swiss Creek Recreation Pavilion is undergoing a massive change, and it'll be very beneficial to a hard hit town that is suffering economically. But I really need to ensure that the community understand the reason why this money that was originally earmarked for the restoration of the Hinnamungi Bridge, and why that has been redirected into this project.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and that's a good question. There's a little bit of information in the report, but I'll just flesh that out if I might, in terms of the background to that. So when the budget was formed, we had we made an allocation of $500,000 in the council budget to contribute to the restoration of the Hinnamungi Bridge, and that was to be paired with $200,000 from Heritage Victoria. At that point in time, we had a project in mind in terms of how we were going to go about restoration of the bridge, and one of the first steps in that was a detailed condition assessment, and unfortunately that detailed condition assessment identified a couple of things, essentially that it would be very difficult to restore the bridge and maintain the heritage values of the bridge in terms of significant replacement of parts of the bridge and so on. And also there's significant risk associated with work on the bridge because it is so compromised. And so for those who have seen it, you'll recall there are large steel beams that run down each side of the bridge now, and one of the things from a heritage perspective that we've been asked to do is to remove those because they compromise the heritage values. But if we remove those steel beams, there's not much of the bridge left to stay there. So there's some real issues that we still need to work through in terms of how we progress it. So as a result, in conversations with Heritage Victoria, it was agreed the project as scoped was not able to proceed, and we've returned, accordingly, we're needed to return the funding to Heritage Victoria. We're still in discussions with Heritage Victoria to determine what exactly the work is that can be done from now. Is it some minimal works that do protect the bridge, say, from debris, etc., floating down the river, or is there something else that we can do? Once we've identified and scoped that work and had that agreement from Heritage Victoria, then we'll be in a position to rebudget the works. So the intention is still that we need to do something in relation to the Hinnamungi Bridge, but until we actually know what the project is, it's a very difficult budget for it, and so as a result, the budget has been reallocated.
Thank you for the explanation, Stuart. I appreciate that.
Councillors, are there any further questions of officers? Councillor Reeves, please go ahead when you're ready.
Just on the verge of sneezing, sorry, I didn't know whether to ask a question or not. Mr McConnell, thanks for the report. It's fantastic. It seems an unusual situation where the Committee of Management, and I just want to acknowledge the Committee of Management contributing $60,000, but they also have funding to the tune of $177,000. So they've received a grant additionally. it's just really impressive on behalf of that committee.
Thanks, Councillor Ruse. Yes, as is the case with many of our reserve committees of management, they do a power of work, and so we want to acknowledge that. Unless Renee knows this, I'm working from memory on this, but I believe separately the Committee of Management had applied for some funding in relation to some toilet upgrades, and then it was recognised that those toilet upgrades could be delivered as part of this building, and so that's been contributed into the building.
Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor White, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got the croaks too. The question's around the balance of the work, because as you quite rightly said, the interruptions from COVID and then the escalation of costs has brought about the use of quite a bit of money to get this part of the reserve work done, but it's leaving out, say, the kitchen, etc., the other building, which will have to be used for some time. But is there a possibility down the track that we may still be able to finish the project if funds are made available?
Thanks, Councillor White. Look, I think it's a good question. So, again, the components that have, because the overall budget there is about the $2.9 million. A fair portion of that has already been expended, as I said, on the netball courts, and so this continues. The committee have worked through the point where they're comfortable to continue using the existing building as the social rooms for the time being. The real priority was around the change rooms, etc., if you recall. So it's not an immediate issue, but I'm sure we'll continue to work with the committee around their plans for future upgrades, etc., at the facility. I've certainly been to a number of events and meetings, etc., in the social rooms, and they certainly are important in the life of the Swifts Creek community.
Very good. Councillor, are there any further questions of officers? Councillor Buckley, please go ahead.
Thank you. Has there been any impediments or problems associated with this project thus far that have been resolved or sorted out now?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Buckley. There are a range of issues that we've had to work our way through. So, as I mentioned before, cost escalation issues that have plagued a number of the projects through this COVID period. We've also have been out to tender once previously and not received any suitable tenders, so that delayed us. And we also initially planned to deliver this internally, and unfortunately some personnel changes meant that was not possible, and so we've been out again to tender just recently to bring this to council within this period of council, and also with a time frame that enables us to deliver the project before the end of the grant period. So it's a project that's had some challenges along the way, and certainly again, as I mentioned earlier, the Committee of Management have been patient as we've worked through a number of those things.
Any further questions of officers, councillors? We do have an officer recommendation in the report. Councillor White, you're happy to move that, and Councillor Reeves to second. Would you like to speak to the motion, John?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like
I think we just need...
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Yes.
What have we done?
No, I'm up to my old tricks in that before I'll get you to speak to it, Councillor White, I'd just like you to fill in the blanks that we see on the screen there and confirm that those details are correct.
Well, firstly,
my apologies, John. I think I did this to you last meeting as well. Thank you, Alba, for bringing that to our attention.
Firstly, I'd start by saying thank you, Alba, for keeping us on the straight and narrow. So to fill it in, I'll just read out the tender submitted by Design Co-Builders Proprietary Limited for contract CON 2025 170 1R, Swifts Creek Recreation Reserve Pavilion construction, and works for the tendered lump sum price of $1,905,429.56, excluding GST as provided at Appendix 1. be accepted.
And if you could just confirm that those details on the screen are correct. Thank you, councillor.
I think that's pretty good.
Yes, councillor Reeves, happy to second that. Okay, thank you, councillor White. You may now speak to the motion.
Well, after all that, I've probably forgotten what I wanted to say. but I would really like to acknowledge the work that the Committee of Management have done up there. You know, it's a volunteer's job. It's tireless and selfless. And I'm sure that the rest of the community are fully behind what they have achieved in getting this pavilion finally the change rooms up to the construction stage. So wishing them all the best upon its completion, and wishing that their community can hold strong in the conditions, the circumstance they find them in, and that their netball teams can prosper and take advantage of this new facility. So I wish the people of Swiss Creek and surrounds all the best in the future once this is built, because you know, they've got some fine netball courts there now, and you know, in this day and age we really need to provide the proper facilities, i.e. in the change rooms, etc., and for the umpires, just for well, make you feel better, because I can remember showering in some pretty ordinary old club rooms 40 years ago. So you know, good luck to them, and again thank you to the Committee of Management and their patience, and the fact that they're still well and truly willing to work with council, and also for the fact that they have been able to get together quite a sum of money towards it. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor White. Councillor Reeves.
Yeah, thank you, councillor White. And just to add onto that comprehensive statement there, which I absolutely support, there's no doubt about the economic benefits to this particular community from having this there. It makes the place stickier, people hang around when you've got these great sporting facilities that are much more accessible, and that also, of course, builds a social cohesion. But as is alluded to in the report, and I think Mr McConnell, you mentioned this about emergency planning, preparation, response and recovery aspect. It's a really important staging area, and to have these facilities available in the event of any untoward event in future is really important. So, yep, terrific. I'm glad to see it going ahead, and acknowledge the unusual circumstance, and we do wish that DECA had the ability to contribute more, but we acknowledge the state government funding.
Thank you, councillor Reeves. Councillors, is the motion opposed? No? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Buckley, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, it was a terrific grand final, Omeo versus Swiss Creek, that I recently attended at Swan Reach, and it's amazing how sport in our remote areas just bring everybody together, older people, younger people, families, and it's not only a place where we gather to play sport, it's where people talk business, they talk heartache, they talk hardship, and they support each other's mental health. So having facilities such as these are incredibly important, especially you know, with Swiss Creek suffering economic losses from the closure of the native timber industry, and now the loss of DECA employees, which has just really hurt the community. And I hope that this is a small consolation to them that will make a huge difference and help them bounce back in those sorts of conditions. So I fully support and endorse this motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Buckley. Councillors, would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? No, in which case I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to agenda item 5.1.2, which is CON 2025-1678 fire slashing services. And Mr McConnell, I believe this item sits within your directorate. We'll just wait for those who have declared conflicts in this item to vacate, and then you can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report for the award of a contract for fire slashing services across 6 different areas across East Gippsland Shire. It's really timely. It's important part of our work about helping East Gippsland be ready for each fire season, and we're certainly coming into that period shortly in terms of the year. So it's an important contract for us to consider. The management of council-controlled land to prevent fire and weed growth is an important part of our land management responsibilities. Given the expanse of council's local road network and public reserves, it's not possible for us to do all of that work in-house, and so to ensure the continuation of other work as well. So therefore, we deliver this service through contractors appointed on a multiple year basis. So key points for consideration of council are for the ease of management and to assist the tenderers in their submission. Council divided the area into 6 areas, and the tenderers were able to submit pricing for one or more of those areas. The contract replaces the existing schedule of rates contract, so this is now proposed primarily as a lump sum contract. The request for tender was advertised seeking responses from suitably qualified contractors, and 10 submissions were received before the closing date, so that was a positive thing. The tender evaluation panels considered and provided recommendations. Those recommendations are there for your consideration. The new contract is for an initial term of 2.5 years with the option for extensions to that, and the contract is on a lump sum basis within schedule of rates for additional work. So councillors, the report is before you, and Paul Rooney has joined me to assist with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell, and welcome, Mr Rooney. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Reeves and then Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. My question is about the scope and scale of the contract. It's a big area, and when I'm just reminded of the diversity of our landscape, these areas are not all tackled simultaneously. There's different curing rates, growth seasons and so on. Does this potential contract that we're awarding allow that scope for a successful contractor or contractors to be able to start and finish at different times and be responsive to the growth?
Yeah, thanks Councillor Reeves. Fundamentally, yes, it does. So firstly, the contract requires provision of sufficient plant to cover the area that we're talking about, because as you say, it is a large area. But we know typically the western parts of the municipality are ready for slashing earlier than the eastern parts, and sometimes depending on what the conditions have been, sometimes the high country can also be ready for slashing early. So there is a capacity within the contract for us to identify when different areas to start, and also to make sure that there's sufficient plant and equipment available to deliver.
Councillor White, please go ahead.
Thank you. My question relates to the flexibility, perhaps within the contract, in terms of, I'm sure your own staff would be put in a position to actually monitor and make decisions of when the contractors are required to be anywhere within the Shire in order to get the best value and get the timing right. Is that something that you have in place?
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Yes, so the areas when we're going into slash will depend upon growth. So it's more than the road supervisors understand their areas and they know when these works need to be undertaken, and there's provision in the contract for supervision in terms of reporting on a regular basis, so we understand exactly what work's getting done and when it's getting done. So.
Councillors, are there any further questions of officers? Mr McCullough, I understand there are some changes to the recommendation as was published in the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I might just
Opportunity
get
to speak to those.
Thanks, Vanessa, for putting those on the screen. So the first one, I'll just run you through each of those slight changes that are highlighted in yellow. So we originally, in the first one on number 2, there was also a line in there that was reflecting the overall value of the contract. So just for ease and prevention of any errors of miscalculation, we've just removed that and referenced there to each of the dollar values for each of the areas, and also just to note that the contract is subject to the normal CPI adjustments that the contracts of this kind are subject to. The other part responds to and just draws out and reinforces some matters that have been raised with us, just to make sure we're satisfied in relation to how the contract can be managed and ensure we get the delivery of the works as required. So the contract does contain clauses about the reasonable rate of progress for completing the works, and includes that if the contract manager is not satisfied in relation to the progress, there is the capacity to withdraw some of that work and allocate it to a different contractor. And also, specifically, that we will undertake a review of that performance against the contract after the initial period and confirm that work is being undertaken appropriately, or if not, take action in accordance with the contract. So those items were there, those provisions, particularly in Clause 4, were already there in the contract, but I think it's worth highlighting those to give everyone confidence about the way in which the contract would be managed.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there questions about those variations? Councillor Greeson, please go ahead.
I'm just wondering, Mr McConnell, if you would mind talking a little bit about how the performance monitoring and review will be undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for the question. So, yes, the expectation under the contract is the contractors will report fortnightly on progress, provide pictures, provide evidence of work done. So that's generally how we've done it in the past, but there's an expectation if it doesn't get done, it doesn't meet KPI, and there's repercussions for that.
Councillor Uri, please go ahead.
Thank you. So my question relates to the added wording there. So my expectation would be that a contractor who had tendered for this work wouldn't be surprised by those added words, or wouldn't find that those outrageous conditions. Thank you.
No, through you, Mayor, Councillor, no, that those items have already been in the draft contract, so it's stuff that the provisions that the contractors should be well aware of.
Further questions, officers, councillors? We do have a recommendation before us. Councillor Allen, thank you. And a second to Councillor Reeves. Councillor Allen, would you like to do the honours by filling in the blanks there, please?
Can I get Vanessa to fill in the figures?
I believe you can.
But so Clause 2 would be accepts the tender submitted by Bat Brothers for CON 2025 1678 fire slashing services for the contract amounts below. And if Vanessa could fill that in, I'd be most appreciative. So keep reading. Area 1, lump sum price of 83,750. Area 2, lump sum price of 62,950. Area 3, lump sum price of 110,850. Area 4, lump sum price 91,850. Area 5, lump sum price 83,700. Area 6, lump sum price of 40,900, all exclusive of GST, and schedule of rates.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Reeves, you can confirm that they are the details you are seconding?
Confirmed, yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion? Or the
Thank you, Mayor.
recommendation?
Look, this contract's a very important one, particularly in terms of fire prevention and public safety. And as Mr McConnell has said, we're nearly in fire season, which makes it even more important that we get this in place.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Reeves.
And I'll just add to that this is quite a complex contract as well, given the nature and scope of the area and the work that's being undertaken. And just to pay regard to the tender evaluation panel, who have provided significant information and under questioning and I was going to say interrogation, not really interrogation, more inquiry from the councillors to ensure that we are getting the best value and the best outcome for the Shire, not just in terms of value for money, but also the service it's provided. So I wanted to acknowledge that. So, and I look forward to Bat Brothers and their contractors doing an excellent job.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillors, is the motion opposed? No. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? No, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. CEO, thank you. Councillors, we'll now move on into the Business Excellence Directorate with it. Yes, we'll just bring some more officers into the room. So we'll move into the Business Excellence Directorate. And of course we have back with us Ms Sarah Johnson, the General Manager of Business Excellence. Agenda item 5.2.1 is the Council Investment Policy. Ms Johnson, this sits with you. If you'd like to speak to it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you tonight is a report titled Investment Policy, which is seeking to consider and adopt the revised investment policy, which you can see at attachment 1. Key points to consider tonight are the investment policy is a key financial management document that provides direction for investments whilst balancing risk to council for investments made. The policy was last reviewed in 2022 and is reviewed biannually to ensure it meets industry best practice and our approach to risk. Officers have undertaken a review of the policy and following discussion with the Audit and Risk Committee, further details have been added into the policy regarding ethical investments, specifically that Council will invest funds in green, social or sustainability funds within the financial institution framework, terms to maturity framework and authorised investments set out in this policy. So this goes back to the balancing of the risk of these things. The update also brings together our investments in local community banks, and this obviously goes to the social contribution that these community banks make across our region. As custodians of public money, the policy aims to balance the security of investments, the rate of return, and the commitment to supporting environmentally and socially responsible investments. The policy has also added in Treasury Corporation of Victoria as an authorised investment organisation for term deposits, noting that TCV has a Standard & Poor's credit rating of AA and is approved by the Minister to be able to hold our investments as well. Tonight I have with me Liz Collins, our Manager of Finance as well, for any technical questions that you may have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, are there any questions of officers on this investment policy? No? I see none. There is... Councillor Uri, going to leap in there with a question?
Yes, I will.
11th hour, please go ahead.
So thank you for the report. I appreciate that. Could I just understand, please, where this report has been? It was referred to the Audit and Risk Committee, I believe, at the last meeting. Could I understand what their response to the presentation of the report was, please?
Thank you, Councillor Uri. It's a really good question. So it has been to the Audit and Risk Committee a couple of times and obviously that committee is in place, that they're not a committee that can make decisions, but they provide assurance to the council group and to council for the things that you take to them. So they didn't have any specific comments to this. They were supportive of it and they were supportive of it coming to the councillor group in its current form.
Terrific. And secondly, if I could just be reminded, or if everybody could just be reminded of the process around council's investments. So my understanding is that council has set the policy, and that's taking into account all the restrictions and guidelines of the Local Government Act, so the local government can't do anything it wants. There are things it has to abide by, and then the officers make the decision from using those guidelines. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Yes, that is correct. I can, Liz can give you some more operational detail if you'd like.
I think that's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Uri. Councillor Stowe, you have a question.
Could I just ask if Audit and Risk had any questions about an AFSL licence, or did they just not think to ask that?
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. It's a really good question, and no, that wasn't a specific question that they raised. So obviously an AFSL is a licence holder who has the ability to provide advice in the financial services area. Specifically to council, because of the regulation around Section 103 of the Local Government Act and the Minister's endorsement of where we can invest, we haven't seen that as a necessary piece in this particular policy that we've got in front of council tonight.
I think my question was, did Audit and Risk think to look at that, or did they not think to look at it?
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. They didn't ask that specific question, if that answers your question.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Councillors, are there any further questions of officers? Councillor Greason.
Look, thank you for this. It's great to see it, and it's an important step, I think, for council to take an ethical approach to its investment. And I'm just wondering what the next step is. What do we do next now that we've got? If this policy is approved, what's the next step? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grecian. So from what we do next, obviously this sets the framework, the policy framework for where we can make decisions. So as in adding TCV into the mix, we'll be looking at what products they've got, and we'll be balancing that out against risk to the business and return, because it's obviously public money that we are investing with, will fit within those guidelines. So now that we've got, if this particular policy is endorsed tonight, the next step will be looking at the how much investment we have and we hold, and where we're going to be able to put that within the framework, of course, and noting that most of the money that is held is in short term, regardless from this particular council's perspective.
Thank you, Councillor Greason. Councillors, any further questions of officers? There is an officer recommendation in the report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Uri, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Greason. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd firstly like to thank the officers for considering this matter over quite a period of time. As we've heard, the investment policy and particularly ethical investments have been the subject of a previous report to Council, as well as two reports to the Audit and Risk Committee. I believe that considering matters beyond simply financial implications is something which has been common in business, government, and presumably in individual decision-making for a long time now. So not just to consider the financial implications, but to also consider the social and environmental and political or government implications of any financial decision also. I think it's entirely appropriate that this council takes this small step also through this revised investment policy. And as we have heard, the role of the councillors is to set the policy guidelines, and the officers will make the decision. So there's no compulsion for the officers to make that decision. Given the guidelines, they will make the decision about where the investments are made. So the effect, I think, of the changes, there are some more changes to be made to the policy, but the main one is to add another option for officers to consider, and I think it's entirely appropriate. And I urge other councillors to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I don't have anything to add, thank you.
Very good. Is the motion opposed? No? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? No, in which case I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And I believe that is carried, CEO. And those against? Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to agenda item 5.3.1, which is the Economic Development Advisory Committee Unconfirmed Meeting Minutes. And Chris Stevenson, I believe this sits within your Directorate of Place and Community. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this report provides Council with the unconfirmed minutes of the Economic Development Advisory Committee meetings held on the 30th of May 2024 and the 25th of July 2024, and they're provided at attachments 1 and 2 for noting. Some of the key agenda items for discussion at the May meeting included Bensdale 2050 and a briefing on the new energy opportunity study. We also had Council's Manager of Economic Development and Tourism provided an update on activities. Also at this meeting, EDAC members raised the February storm event where our community lost power and internet, which impacted the economy, and questioned if any reviews were underway to inform future improvements to resilience. An action was noted for Council to invite Telstra to attend the next meeting to answer any questions. The July meeting included representatives from Telstra, AusNet and NBN Local, along with Council's Manager of Emergency Management, to facilitate a discussion on telecommunications resilience in East Gippsland. Additionally, at this meeting, EDAC members were also engaged in the review and feedback on the community vision. There are no recommendations to Council in the minutes from the May or the July EDAC meeting minutes, and this report is presented for your consideration and noting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Van Diegel, for reminding me to turn my microphone back on. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to this item this evening? Councillor Buckley, please go ahead. And I'll remind you to turn your microphone on too. Easily
Had
done.
to happen. I have two questions. The first one is around the committee itself. It's more a governance question or a follow-on, because it took a long time for this committee to be established. It would have been, considering the circumstances of our the economic crisis that many of us are feeling at this stage, the guidance of this committee is so incredibly important for focus and future reference. So this, I assume, will continue on into the next council term, the same council group, and they will sort of get a foothold and hit the ground running. Is that correct?
CEO?
I might take that question if that's okay, given that Mr Stevenson is so new to the role. At this stage, the committee continues on beyond the term of this current council. Council then has the council, as appointed and voted for at the end of this year, will have the opportunity to review all of the committees that are and the advisory committees that it may want to seek advice from. So it will be really up to the incoming council whether they continue this committee or not. But the terms of reference and the length of tenure for those on the committee have been extended to give the council that opportunity to consider whether they want to continue this advisory committee. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much, CEO, for that comprehensive explanation. Now, my final question is, and this may not be a question that can be answered, but it's been part of our council initiative or plan that our commitment was to achieving net zero. Is that at all plausible, feasible, or achievable?
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Our officers are working towards a report to bring to the new council, which will outline or brief councillors on the plan and the actions to deliver on that commitment that was made as part of the environmental sustainability strategy. So that's something that we'll be bringing to the new council, along with a financial analysis of those options. And as you'll be aware, many of those options, because they're often about energy saving and things like that, often have a positive outcome from a financial perspective as well.
Thank you, Mr O'Connell.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor, is there any further questions on the EDAC minutes? No, I see none. We need a motion. Thank you, Councillor Greason. Seconded by Councillor Reeves. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This committee took a long time to be established, and I think it's probably only had, 4 or 5 meetings so far, and so I think it's really starting to pull together and work very effectively. I'm very pleased to support it. Thank you. And the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Greason. Councillor Reeves.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Councillor Greason. And just to acknowledge that the members of this, I know we're actually just receiving this report, but just to acknowledge the members give generously of their time and their knowledge, and that's a great contribution to us and the council.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? No, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 6, which is the mayoral term address. So thanks, everyone. I'll start by saying that I've thoroughly enjoyed my time as mayor. I thank the councillor group and the community more broadly for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure and an honour. Over my time as mayor, with the help of councillors, the community and staff, our council has been dedicated to supporting East Gippsland's communities by delivering essential services, rolling out new infrastructure and driving recovery projects. We've been involved in hosting community celebrations and events and providing funding opportunities to help our community thrive. All these initiatives are in line with our strategic goals to improve the life of our residents and to strengthen community connections. As I often say, everything council does ultimately comes back to community health and wellbeing. Not discounting the work of the councillor group, I think it's important to highlight and recognise that the work of council, from an operational perspective, is delivered by almost 500 dedicated staff and, of course, numerous contractors. It is indeed their work that allows council to function and deliver the huge range of services our communities both want and need. It's fair to say that most of our council staff go unnoticed as they get on with the job. And rest assured that is what they're doing behind the scenes, working hard to make sure that our Shire is both what it is today, but also what it needs to be in the future. It's also timely to recognise that much of what our council does is planned and delivered by the communities which we serve. So to the staff, community members and the councillors, I say a heartfelt thank you for the work that you do. You are valued and you are appreciated. Last October, I made the undertaking to you all, in return for your endorsement as mayor, to roll up my sleeves and get stuck into it, to make my work with council a priority and to listen to the community. And that, I think, is what I have done. I think you'll all agree, while our council's had its challenges, together we've delivered well on behalf of our community, though there is always room for improvement. I have personally worked hard to lead the councillor group as the first among equals, to bring us together, irrespective of our differences, for the benefits of the community over the last 11 months. And while we may not always agree, our councillor group has, generally, under my mayorship, been collegiate in nature and able to put the community at the centre of decision-making, exactly where it should be. This, I believe, is a credit to us all. During my mayoral term, our region has also experienced unprecedented weather events, including severe flash floods and storms, which have tested our resilience. On the economic front, inflation, rising interest rates and the impacts of environmental changes have compounded difficulties, alongside housing shortages and the transition away from traditional industries. I recognise the pressures from the current economic climate and cost of living increases. Maintaining financial sustainability has been critical in this time, especially with no increases in the financial assistance grants for council for our services from other levels of government. Despite these challenges, we've remained committed to enhancing service delivery and achieving operational efficiency, principles which guided the development of our budget. We continue to actively seek new investments in our region and equitable government funding based on need to benefit our community. To this end, we've recently made 2 submissions to the Victorian and Commonwealth governments advocating for fairer and more sustainable funding models for local government. This is because our work is significant, as for every dollar of revenue we generate, we manage $10 worth of physical assets, like parks and pools. The rising cost of doing business has also impacted our capital works program, yet despite these challenges, we've successfully completed 82 capital works projects in this last year, worth over $50 million, with the remainder set to be finished in coming years. Council delivers over 100 services for our community, and it's easy to forget just how much our council does. To jog your memories, I'm going to give you some fast, fun fact highlights from the last 12 months. Close to 500,000 visitors have been to our aquatic facilities. Almost 14,000 people have attended 75 shows and activities at the Forge Creek Theatre and partnered with many community organisations to deliver hundreds more additional events, including the Winter Festival. In the asset management space, Council maintains over 3,000 kilometres of roads, 191 timber and concrete bridges, 27 pedestrian bridges, 284 kilometres of footpaths and 73 kilometres of trails. We've got 3 commercial marinas with over 400 berths, 50 public jetties, 22 fishing platforms and 33 boat ramps. It's actually pretty amazing the work that we do. In the customer service space, we've taken over 56,000 phone calls, hundreds of them after hours. And 124,510 customers have attended customer service centres during just this last year, excluding the Bairnsdale Library. Speaking of libraries, our libraries have had 245,000 plus visits. 4,500 of those have been to our mobile library service, which has collectively travelled over 60,000 kilometres. Council's websites had 364,000 visits and 23,000 people have visited Council's Your Say page. We've issued 506 planning permits with a development value of over $334 million for over 150 new dwellings and 360 new lots. We've picked up over 1.2 million garbage and recycling bins, with almost half of this diverted from landfill. We've sought to mitigate the risks associated with dangerous extreme weather events and climate change by sourcing 99% of Council's electricity from renewables instead of from unsustainable fossil fuels. Council's 4 public electric vehicle charging stations have seen rapid uptake, being used by people from over 461 different postcodes, of which 198 were visiting from interstate. Councillors, in this mayoral reflection, it's not lost on me that soon the council plan is set to be renewed and taken up by the next chapter of the councillor group. I'd like now just to reflect on some of our collective achievements over the past 12 months in relation to the objectives we established in our council plan now almost 4 years ago. We agreed that we wanted an inclusive and caring community that respects and celebrates diversity. And over this last 12 months, we've celebrated the contribution of volunteers, adding 37 volunteers to the honour roll. We've supported a range of National Reconciliation Week events and are grateful for the ongoing support and collaboration of our Aboriginal partners in the many elements of our council responsibilities. We remain committed to celebrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and advancing reconciliation in our community. We've supported social capital and social infrastructure in the region, strengthening resilience and emergency response. Community recovery committees continue to advance 63 local recovery projects, and our partnership with the East Gippsland Community Foundation has delivered 54 events in recent times. We've bolstered the East Gippsland Road Safety Group, helping improve road safety. We committed to planning an infrastructure that enriches the lifestyle, character of our communities. This year we've delivered over $50 million in capital works. We've delivered community-led relief centre training in Mallacoota, Can River, Orbost, Omeo, Buchan and Lakes Entrance. We've also funded and installed generators to improve energy reliability in some of our more isolated communities and secured funding for 10 more. We've upgraded facilities at sports grounds in Bairnsdale, Omeo, Lindenow and elsewhere. We've committed to a natural environment that is well managed and enhanced. reducing Council's greenhouse gas emissions by advancing the Bairnsdale geothermal project and developing a comprehensive emission reduction plan for Council. We've secured $1.2 million in federal funding to strengthen our ability to respond to disasters and climate-related risks. And we've also made significant progress on the Bairnsdale Regional Compost Facility this year, which once complete will turn garden waste and organic materials into valuable agricultural inputs. We committed to a thriving and diverse economy that attracts investment and generates inclusive local employment. And this year we've hosted an Emerging Industries Careers Expo. We've organised a series of industry roundtables with local business leaders representing our region's key employers and industries. We've rolled out our initiatives from the Culture and Creativity Strategy in line with our commitment to fostering a vibrant local arts scene, and many other economic initiatives, including supporting our agricultural sector. We also committed to a transparent organisation that listens and delivers effective, engaging and responsive services. And we've added a new Councillor Reports Hub to our website and are working towards a transparency hub, which in time will display council data in real time. We've reviewed and refined our advocacy priorities to decision makers at all levels of government, and we've launched a state-of-the-art customer feedback tool to gather insights from those actually using our services. So thanks for sticking with me. Over this past year, as I've said, it's been an honour and a privilege to serve the community as your mayor, and I can honestly say it's an experience that I will cherish and never forget. To say it's been busy would be an understatement, and the 450 plus calendar appointments, meetings, presentations, awards, speeches and events that I've attended in the past 11 months are testament to that and my commitment to the role. Never before have I had a job this diverse and at times challenging. A job where one day I'll be listening to communities' concerns about grass, dog poo on the footpath and an overflowing rubbish bin, and the next, meeting the nation's leaders in Canberra, making sure decision makers at all levels know what matters to our community, ensuring that we have input into the decisions which affect and influence our lives. So again, it's been great, and a big thank you to the community members who have helped me during this mayoral term, and to those who have kept me on my toes and continue to contribute so much to making East Gippsland a great place to live and work. To the council staff for all that you do, and to my fellow councillors, and of course to my dear partner, Kerry Ann, for your enduring patience and support. Thank you all. There you go, Trevor, 10 minutes and 38 seconds. Please go ahead.
Just before we finish up, if I could just mention the sad news of Buffy Baggs passing away recently. And Buffy, as most of you would know, is our undertaker. His father before him and his son after him. It's been a long family tradition. Buffy was a thorough gentleman and he was a compassionate man. He was great at his job. I've seen him at funerals where the family's sitting in the front row and they're in tears and their loved one's in a casket, and Buffy will go up and pick up a bunch of flowers and go over and show the wife or the partner and say, oh, this is from whoever and they've said so-and-so. And by the time he finished with them, they felt a lot better about himself. He did his job exceptionally well, and the town is poorer for his loss.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe, and our condolences to the family. We'll now move on to agenda item number 7, which is urgent business. CEO, do we have any urgent business this evening?
No, Mayor, we have no urgent business.
Agenda item number 8 is confidential business, which I believe there is none.
There is no confidential business tonight, Mayor.
Very good. Councillors, that brings us to agenda item number 9, which is meeting close.
Mayor, just a point.
Councillor Reeves.
I think it'd be nice for me and maybe other councillors just to say a word or two on your council term before we close. And if I can,
by all means.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to congratulate you on a great term, well served and acquitted. I think you have, as you mentioned, rolled up your sleeves and really prioritised the work, and your diary was busy, and anybody who's been in this role will understand how all-consuming the role is, isn't it, Mendy? It's just, it really does suck you in. And I've enjoyed working with you, and especially the times when we were in Canberra together advocating to the federal ministers and anybody else who'd listened to us. I think it formed a really strong bond between us. And I just wanted to congratulate you on your work. And on behalf of the community, thank you for being the mayor in the last 12 months or 11 months. It's hard work. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Reeves. Anybody else like to say anything, or we'll move on? Councillor Greason, this is where I start going red in the face.
Yeah,
but
no, you
please
already
go
are,
ahead.
it's okay. Thanks for those words, Councillor Reeves. I agree with you completely. It's been a real pleasure working with you, Tom, and you know, you're a different kind of mayor, and you're out there, and you're great, and I think people have really enjoyed you being part of the community in the way in which you do. I think your management of this environment has been spot on nearly all of the time, and occasionally forgetting things with Councillor White, etc. But no, I just want to thank you. I think you've been a wonderful mayor.
Thanks very much. Okay, well, that might bring us to the meeting close.
Mayor,
Sonia,
if I may,
yes, please go ahead.
I just want to farewell all the councillors who won't be running again, and wish them well on their journey. And I'm sure Trevor Stowe will be fishing as quickly as he can get out the door. And others will go into nice retirement, and wish Councillor Van Diggle the best on her motherhood. And it's been a really interesting 4 years of our lives. And I want to thank Councillor White for being a constant source of support, and all the officers. So thank you to the community for allowing us to be here and to do the work that we do. So thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley.
Sonia, thank you for those kind words. I appreciate them. I'm sure the others do as well. But we are hanging around for a few more weeks, you know.
Yes, we do in fact have 2 more meetings, the next on September the 24th and the 15th of October following that. So thank you, councillors, officers.
Thank you, Sonia.
People in the gallery, Phil, for turning up tonight. Good on you. Anybody watching at home, I'll draw the meeting to a close at 7:17. Thank you, everybody, and good night.